All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to explore a pretty wild idea today, that our world of nearly 200 countries isn't permanent, that it's actually an unstable, temporary phase, and that the way the world really works is about to snap back to its old, brutal settings. Just imagine you wake up and this is the headline scrolling across your phone. It's hypothetical, of course, but it doesn't feel impossible, does it? And your first reaction, right, it's shock, outrage. You're asking about international law, about the morality of it all. But what if those are the wrong questions? What if they're missing the bigger picture entirely? So here's the real question we're tackling. Is an event like this the earthquake itself, the start of something new and awful, or is it just a tremor, a warning sign of something much deeper, much older, that's been rumbling under the surface for a very, very long time? To make any sense of a headline like that, we can't just stare at the event itself. Nope, we've got to pull the camera way, way back. And when you zoom out like that, a single crisis, whether it's in Venezuela or Ukraine or anywhere else, it stops being the story. It just becomes a single piece of evidence, a data point, in a much, much larger pattern. So how do we see that pattern? Well, we're going to use a thought experiment. It's called the alien test. And honestly, once you hear it, it makes everything else just click into place. Seriously, think about this for a second. An advanced alien civilization, one that can cross the vast emptiness of space, shows up on our doorstep tomorrow. Who do we send out to greet them? Who speaks for Earth? Do we send the President of the United States? The ambassador from Luxembourg? A committee from the UN? Who gets to say, "Welcome to our planet"? And this is where the contrast becomes just stark. On one side, you've got us, Earth today. Almost 200 different countries, all squabbling, all with their own agendas, what the source material calls tribal accounting. And then on the other side, you have what any advanced civilization would have to be, a single unified body with a shared purpose. Because how else could they even get here? I mean, just think about what it takes to do really big things, planet-sized things, like, say, coordinating a global energy grid, or developing technology over generations, or even just deciding how to use the planet's resources. It takes a level of coordination that our current system of 200 competing teams is, well, it's just physically incapable of doing. And that brings us to the core idea here, the big takeaway from the alien test. You don't get to the stars with tribal accounting. It's just not possible. Fragmentation, this whole 200-country thing, it's an early, immature stage for a species. The physics, the sheer scale of the universe, it all but demands that you consolidate to get anywhere meaningful. So the alien test points to a future where we're more unified. But here's the kicker. To see why that's so likely, we don't even need to look to the stars. We just have to look at our own past. This pattern has been with us from the very beginning. For basically all of human history, the default setting was consolidation. It was like an iron law of civilization. Small groups became bigger groups. City-states got absorbed into kingdoms. Kingdoms were swallowed up by empires. This wasn't some fluke, it was the rule. And don't think for a second this was just a European thing. Oh no, it was happening all over the globe, totally independently. In Asia, you have the constant cycle of China breaking apart and then reunifying into a massive empire. In the Americas, you had the Aztecs and the Incas absorbing all their neighbors. In Africa, you had huge empires like Mali and Songhai. No matter where you look on the map, the arrow of history was always pointing in one direction: fewer, bigger powers. So what was driving all this? It was a brutal but incredibly simple logic. Consolidate or be consolidated. You either grew or you got absorbed. You ate lunch or you were lunch. There was no one to call for help, no international court. This was just how the world worked. It was humanity's default set. And then, after thousands of years of this unstoppable trend, it just stopped, dead in its tracks. The whole process just froze. The year was 1945. And this is why. 70 million dead in just 6 years. World War II wasn't just another war. It was industrial-scale slaughter. It was a level of destruction that was so absolute, with weapons so terrifying, that it scared us right down to our bones. And let's be really, really clear about what happened next. We didn't suddenly become better people. We didn't have some great moral awakening and decide to all hold hands. No, we just got scared. Terrified, actually. We had finally invented weapons that made the old game of conquest a potential suicide mission for everybody on the planet. So what did we do?
We created a whole new system, the United Nations, international law, this brand new idea that borders were sacred and you couldn't just invade your neighbor anymore. But here's the thing you have to understand. This system wasn't natural. It was an emergency brake, a truce. It was a collective agreement to freeze the game board before we accidentally blew it up. We basically put history on ice. But you know the problem with ice, right? It melts. And the fear that created that great freeze, well, it's fading. And we are living right in the middle of the great thaw.
Think about it. The generation that actually saw cities turn to ash, they're gone. The visceral, living memory of that horror has faded from the world. For leaders today, total war is something you read about in a history book. It's not a memory from your childhood. And as that deep gut-level fear goes away, guess what comes back? The old instincts, the natural gravity of consolidation. And suddenly, those data points we talked about start to form a very clear line. Russia annexing Crimea in 2014, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and yeah, our hypothetical U.S. intervention in Venezuela in 2026. These aren't just random, disconnected crises. They're the cracking sounds of the ice breaking. They're signs that the old game is back on. What we're all being forced to realize is that this rules-based order we talk about so much, it's really a power-based system with some very selective rules. If you're a great power, you can bend them or even break them, and the consequences are manageable. If you're a weaker state, not so much. The rules are only as strong as the power that enforces them. So, if this old historical pattern is coming back, what does that actually mean for us, for our future? Where is all this heading? Well, the argument is that we're basically looking at three possible paths forward. Okay, so here are our options. Path number one, voluntary integration. This is the optimistic, globalist vision, right? We all decide to come together peacefully, kind of like the European Union, but on a planetary scale. Path number two, forceful consolidation. This is history's default setting, the old, brutal way, where great powers carve up the world into their own spheres of influence, and they do it through conflict. And then there's path number three, permanent fragmentation. This is basically the hope, the prayer maybe, that our current frozen system can just somehow last forever, even with all the pressure building up against it. And that really leaves us with a big, uncomfortable question, doesn't it? Because all the evidence, the logic of the alien test, the long arc of human history, the massive challenges facing our planet, it all seems to point in one direction. Consolidation is coming. It's inevitable. So the real choice we have isn't if it's going to happen. The choice is how. Are we going to be smart enough to shape it ourselves through choice and cooperation? Or are we just going to wait for history's old violent habits to come back and shape it for us?